Hi, welcome to another episode of Just Saying With. Today, we're just saying with Charlie Baillie, the co founder and chief growth officer of Ampverse. Now, Ampverse is one of the fastest growing esports companies in the East, and they're trying to build some of the world's most engaged, influential, and high performance communities across the gaming universe. Hi, Charlie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, Charlie, you are now in Bangkok. I know that Ampverse has got offices in, let's see, you've got in Singapore, Vietnam, India, and Thailand. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. We're headquartered in Singapore, but we're operating across the region.
Oh, that's cool. So, how are things in Bangkok? It's been a while since I've been there. What's life like there in a COVID world?
It's okay at the moment. We're doing great here, and it was sort of largely getting back to normal. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of a flare up recently, so like lots of countries, it's kind of slightly back in a more controlled way. But generally life is good here, and everyone's kind of getting on with business. So hopefully, it will settle down again pretty soon.
Right, that's good. I mean, things like you say, things flare up. So that's been the case in Singapore for the last couple of weeks as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed. And I think that's to the topic at hand, which is gaming, right? And I don't think gaming been very affected by COVID, or is it the other way around that gaming's now seen a boost?
I think generally it's obviously it's one of the sort of fortunate industries that it's been certainly less affected. I wouldn't say it's been not affected at all because, of course, with say brands, spending less money and being more cautious in the current climate, then obviously that has an impact. But generally, as you're alluding to, people are obviously at home more, they're gaming more than ever, they're consuming more gaming content, and I think for a number of people, they've been exposed to esports or gaming, either for the first time or increasingly so. So we've certainly benefited from that in terms of the viewership that's happening around the space, which has been great.
Yeah, and I like what you just said there. A lot of people are now being exposed to gaming a lot more so. And what about you yourself? So you've got an interesting career. You used to be in music, and now you're in gaming, right? Uh, what was that transition like? Why the transition?
Yeah, I've as you said, I started my career in the music industry. I spent a number of years, most notably at Universal Music Group for a number of years, looking after a lot of their big talent in Europe, and then I went on to do more kind of media and advertising related roles at various startups, and that's what actually brought me to Asia to help launch a digital advertising business here. And so I've always been interested in the kind of the media space, the entertainment space, and was as I started thinking about kind of Ampverse with my co-founders, we just felt there was a real opportunity around this intersection of gaming and media, and what that's going to mean for brands, wanting to reach these audiences. So that's what brought me here. And yeah, we started the business a couple of years ago, and it's been a pretty fun ride since.
So are you based in Bangkok now? Is that now your own personal headquarters?
That is my own, personal headquarters. I was living in Singapore for 4 or 5 years when I first moved to Southeast Asia from London, where I'm originally from, and then I was sort of helping to build the business Ampverse from there for the last couple of years, and then more recently, only about 6-7 months ago, I moved to Bangkok, where the other 3 co-founders of the business are based. So it was an interesting time moving to a new country mid-pandemic, but it was. It was good to be here with the rest of the team and to kind of be together as we're building the business.
As you mentioned just now, so music, you've got music, and then you go, all right, you and your founders and the co-founders of Ampverse, they go, yeah, it's going to be gaming, right? We're going to move from music, and you want to move from music, we're going to do gaming. Why? What did you see in the industry that said that now's the time to make the switch and this is the next big thing? Or was it the
Well,
current big thing? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think it's gaming obviously has been huge, for a long time, right? It's certainly not a new industry, and it's been bigger than the music and the movie industries combined for a number of years now. But I think what we've really started to see in the last couple of years is kind of esports obviously rising as a sort of subset, but fast growing subset of gaming, right? Which is the professionalization of gaming. And as that's evolved, it's sort of become, it's helped take gaming more into the mainstream, where more people are aware of gaming and more people have been introduced to esports for the first time. And for me personally, I was just fascinated by, I've always been a kind of casual gamer, but I've been particularly interested in, the growth of esports, and what I could see was this kind of emerging entertainment form ultimately. And I could see that it was, growing very quickly. And I could see that, esports, or I felt that esports was going to, be on par with traditional sports or other kind of, entertainment forms, particularly for younger kids and younger generation right today, because when I was growing up, or other generations, right, people, kids would aspire to be their favorite footballer or aspire to be a kind of musician, right? But what you're starting to see now is kids, of various ages really looking up to gamers and to esports players as their idols, right? And I think that's just a sort of testament of where the industry is growing and how it's increasingly becoming kind of part of the mainstream. So all of that was exciting to me, and I figured there's an interesting opportunity to try and build something there.
I think you've hit on something right there, where it's gone from, you're right. I used to be the guy, always wanted to meet my favorite musicians and sports personalities. And now I've got friends. Yes, I do have a couple of friends. I've got friends
I'm
who,
sure you got a lot of friends.
and they say names, people in the esports industries, and when you go to game cons and things like that, you look at the queues, you see the fanfare, you see the amount of support around these esports personalities. And that's when it really makes someone who's not within the industry or someone from the outside looking in go that, what's this? This is not something that I expected. And that was really my first impression as well, because I've always been gaming. But growing up, you've always been told by your parents not to game, and you're always doing it too much and things like that. And you stop. It's a hobby. But now you see the big dollars, the big bucks, and it's a profession. Um, is esports now a real career option? What do you think?
For sure. I think, you've raised a couple of interesting points there, right? Which is that firstly, I think there was a myth, you've kind of alluded to it, whereby, for many people, they thought of gaming as just, or gamers, sorry, being, this very specific niche, young male kind of teenage audience. And what's increasingly the case is that it's not, right. It's much more diverse in terms of sort of, gender split. It skews older than people think. And so I think for a number of people, actually, it was, kind of being a gamer was not necessarily a cool thing to admit to, right? If you're a DJ or if you're into sport or football, then people would kind of shout about it, in kind of social settings, at school, university, what have you. But there was a bit more of a stigma, I'd say, around being a gamer for some, and particularly here in Asia, right, where there is more of a taboo around it. But that slowly started to be broken down, which has been great. And as you said, more money, more advertising dollars is coming to the space. You've got, prize pools for esports tournaments, from sort of, hundreds of thousands of dollars through to millions of dollars globally, right? And so with that, there's a whole new career path that's starting to emerge, not only for professional players. If you want to be an esports player, you can make a good living now. If you want to be a gaming creator, you can make a great living now. But there's all lots of other industries or kind of careers around it, for everything from being a caster, being a kind of commentator in the space, being a data analyst for esports teams. We're hiring psychologists, we're hiring fitness instructors for our teams, right? So there's a whole ecosystem starting to build around it. Which is great. That means more money, more professionalism, and more opportunities for people to build a real career out of it. So there's lots happening in that respect.
And would that be the typical setup then? because you see that, and you've mentioned things like data analysts, sports scientists, psychologists. This is something that I would relate or be something akin to a Premier League club, in the UK, right? It's something you would expect: Man City, Liverpool, Manchester. These are things that comes out from, that's the structure you have in those sports teams. But is that a typical structure? I guess not. But is it like the Premier League structure that you have for your esports teams then?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, we take so advice. We look up to a lot of these kind of pro sports teams in many ways, right? The professionalization, the infrastructure they've built. They're operating, from their talent, their teams, and the businesses right at the highest level. And I think esports and esports teams, it's much more nascent, obviously, as a profession, as an industry. I think some of the teams are run very well and very professionally. Others, less so, because it's more of an emerging space. But from an Ampverse perspective, anyway, just in terms of speaking, on behalf of our business, we're really trying to elevate, the teams and the communities here in this region. We're building this business in the East, as you said. We think there's huge opportunity here. There's a lot of great talent. There's a lot of demand in terms of consumers' interest in gaming, and so we really want to elevate the space, right? And our strategy is we actually go and acquire teams, and then we kind of help grow them and develop them, and everything from on the pitch in terms of how they perform through to then the commercialization around it. So we really believe in investing that, and we think there's lots of opportunities to develop. And I think fast forward another 4, 5, 6 years plus, the professionalization of esports will be on par with traditional sports, if not succumbing in many ways, because it's only growing. It's not a fad. It's here to stay. It's pretty evident. And so, with all of the development and sophistication that comes, then there'll be, greater levels of professionalization around the space, which is great.
Right. You've said a couple of very interesting things, and I'll get to them in just a minute. But I've got one question about the industry before we get to that. And it's about how gaming has bled into the everyday. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, like, now, even when I turn on Netflix, I've got a new Dota animated series that's up there. It's everywhere now. And once upon a time, it used to be about, hey, did you know that Walking Dead was a comic first? And those were, little bits of trivia. But now it's, did you know this was a game first? Warcraft has its movie. You've got animated series that are coming up now on Netflix. You've got, so many different ways that they are blending into everyday life. Do you think that's indicative of the future and how esports is just gonna, we're not even going to know it, right? That it's there and we are part of this whole game culture now?
Yeah, I think you're hit a really good point there. It's absolutely the case. I mean, I'm biased, but admittedly so. But the reality is, gaming and gaming culture is becoming much more mainstream, right? And you've alluded to things like Netflix and obviously investing in content, but you're seeing that more and more with the rise of the profile of a lot of these teams and talent and players. I think brands are increasingly coming into space, right? And they're doing it, really fundamentally because brands go where the eyeballs are, right? It's an age-old mantra for advertisers, right? And if the eyeballs go there, the advertising dollars will follow. And that's the case with gaming now, because brands recognize that more people are consuming gaming content, and this is a good way for them to reach their next set of customers. So with that, what you started to see is that kind of gaming talent, whether it be pro players, or influencers, famous people like Ninja in the US, or kind of local equivalents here in Southeast Asia. These talent are, sort of cultural icons in many ways, and for a next generation, they really are. And so you're seeing more brands invest and more brands wanting to work with talent. An interesting example of that here in Thailand, one of the teams that we own had a great relationship with KFC, where they started as a sponsor of the team, and that partnership grew and was very successful, and it kind of evolved to the fact that KFC then wrote the team into their national TVC and featured the brand across their national TVC, which was, a great thing for the brand, for the team. But, there was a mutual relationship there, and the brand recognized that, this team and this talent obviously has an impact, right? So you're going to see more of these sort of relationships, more of these sort of partnerships, where you're used to seeing famous tennis players, whether it be Djokovic or Federer or the Kardashians or whoever it may be, on the face of, advertising for different brands. You're going to see more teams, more talent from the gaming space follow suit. I'm sure of that.
Is that where Ampverse comes in then, to bring in those kinds of opportunities for these pro teams and to build the celebrity profile? So how does Ampverse come into play then?
Our vision is really to sort of, as you mentioned right at the beginning of the show, to build, the largest and most engaged gaming communities across this region. So for us, that means we anchor each market with owning a esports team, and then we build communities around those teams. And so from our perspective, everything that we do is about how do we grow these communities? How do we have more impact within the gaming ecosystem in the markets that we operate? And how do we build icons? How do we build heroes that build audiences, and obviously then commercialization will follow. So for us, it's all about building these sort of high performance and highly engaged communities. We really believe in hyper-local. So we're not actually trying to build Ampverse as a consumer brand. We effectively own a portfolio of communities across the region. And we're looking to kind of grow them and sort of elevate, as I said, the teams and the talent that go with that.
And what would it take, or basically, what are you looking for? Now, someone set up an esports team. You've got somebody at home who thinks that, yes, esports, I want to be a pro player. What are you looking for that they can then take back and go, yes, this is what I need to do in order to be picked up?
Well, of course, it starts with talent itself. Especially if you're starting with the teams, their performance and their capabilities as players in the respective games is key. But we also look for other things, right? I think building a community is about having popularity. It's about having authenticity. It's about producing content that consumers and audiences gravitate towards. And I think that's where we differ slightly to some of the maybe other businesses in the space, which is we really focus on not only just building and helping develop the team on the pitch, so to speak, but also really investing in the kind of gaming influencers and the communities around it and the content. Because if you do that, you build a fan base. If you build a fan base, then you have a distribution channel with which to monetize through sponsorships, through to sell direct to consumer, merchandise, and other kind of products and offerings. So yeah, we look for great talent on the pitch, but then we also look for personalities and engaging kind of content creators that we can bring in as part of our communities. And that strategy's worked really well for us, here in Southeast Asia, and what we're now rolling out in India, and we have aspirations to go further afield beyond that, is really following that model about community first. And yeah, we're going to continue to try and do more and more of that across the region, hopefully.
And speaking of the region, there are a couple of powerhouses that the traditional big players in terms of countries where you see a lot of the big teams come out, Japan, Korea, they've always been up there. Where do you see the new talent coming out from? Is it still the traditional sources, or do you see something else happening over here in Southeast Asia and the rest of Asia maybe?
Yeah, I think if you take esports specifically, South Korea specifically is the market that's known as being, one of the earlier markets that's really born some great talent. A lot of great teams have come from there, and it's a mature market from an esports perspective, relatively speaking. But the key, the larger Southeast Asian markets, from Indonesia to Vietnam to Thailand, they all have very, very active and engaging and buoyant sort of gaming ecosystems. Singapore, there's more and more activity happening. Malaysia, so all of your core Southeast Asian markets are active. Markets like India are very interesting. There's obviously the sheer scale of it, but there's some good talent that's starting to build, and there's a real sort of ecosystem that's starting to develop there. I'd say they're a year or two behind Southeast Asia, and just in terms of the development of that ecosystem, but I've got no doubt they'll catch up. So yeah, I think there's lots of growth opportunity in Southeast Asia. For us specifically, we think Southeast Asia is interesting. Beyond that, we think other parts of the world, such as the Middle East, is interesting as another emerging region. So yeah, lots of sort of space to grow. We're really just at the start of this whole esports scene in the grand scheme of things, and where it's going to go ultimately.
Right. And I know I said I wasn't going to throw you any curveballs, but it's popped into my head, and it's not a bad question. It's not a bad question. It's when you take a look at esports and then you see traditional sports. Do you think, what do you think sets esports apart from traditional sports? And do you think there's something that they can learn from you?
Well, I think that, obviously the obvious one is the fact that esports is an inherently digital sport, right? I mean, yes, it's played in stadiums, not so much in the current climate, but before, so, and after. But it's ultimately a sport that was born online and will continue to be largely played and consumed online, right? So that in its very definition sets itself apart from kind of traditional sports that are physical first and then trying to build kind of digital experiences. And I think that that is really one of the reasons why it's grown so quickly, pandemic aside, and why it will continue, just because of obviously how trends in digital media consumption and so on and so forth. It's interesting. You're starting to see. We talked about convergence earlier on, and this kind of convergence of music and gaming and fashion and gaming, but the same is true of sport, right? You're seeing major professional Premier League clubs or other kind of top tier teams from around the world launching esports teams, and they're doing that as obviously a way to extend their brand into younger audiences. But for many, let's take pro football teams, their esports team will be the entry point for a number of consumers. If you're a younger kid in rural Indonesia or Thailand or the Philippines, and you follow your favorite gamer or you follow your favorite esports team, that might be your entry point to discovering, a football team and so on. So it's really interesting dynamic. I'm intrigued to see how this will continue to play out. But ultimately, I think, gaming it sort of sets itself up apart from that. It has a real clear value proposition. It has a point of difference versus traditional sports, but ultimately there's room for both. It's not like, they're not going to coexist together.
Right. And well, final question for you. What's next for Ampverse?
So yeah, we're really focused this year on just kind of expansion, right? So you mentioned we're now operational with our business across Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, recently India. So we're looking to grow the business there. We're also going to be fundraising this year. We have a Series A plan, which we're excited about, to help take the business to the next level. So for us, we've got a blueprint that we feel very strongly about. We've kind of had the last year or two to really prove out that blueprint in terms of how we acquire and then grow these communities. And now it's about really scaling the business, doing more and more of that. We're about 65 people now across the region. And we're looking to really kind of scale our presence and really hopefully solidify ourselves as a market leader across this region. So more of the same really, but we're excited to kind of grow the business this year.
Sounds good. Well, Charlie, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And, I hope things get better in Bangkok, not just Bangkok. I hope things get better in the world and we can all go out and travel again. And, hopefully I can see you in person and not in Zoom.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And let's hopefully we can have a drink in Bangkok or Singapore before. Yep. All right. Take care.
Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching another video from Just Saying Asia. Please, if you like our content, like the page, like us, subscribe, and leave a comment. We really want to hear what you have to say, and we'll be happy to answer your comments and your questions as well. So stay tuned and see you in the next video.